Are you ready to do this, Britta?
I am ready, Spence. Punch it, Chewie.
Welcome, Super Friends, to the Fortress of Nerditude podcast, a safe place to talk about all things in nerd and pop culture. I'm Spencer Stapleton, and my co-pilot tonight is Britta Stapleton.
Hello.
We're two nerds and lovers that just refuse to grow up. Thank you for joining us. This is episode 130. We release every Thursday morning. You can find us on our website, fortofnerd.com. We have links to iTunes, Google Music, Spotify, YouTube, Stitcher, and everywhere podcasts are available. Stop by, relax a while. If you like what you're hearing, hit that subscribe button and get us automatically each and every week in your ear holes. Britta, how's it going?
Great. Just great.
You know, I don't get to use the nerds and lovers line all that often.
I know, I could have said like parents or, husband and wife, whatever.
Lovers.
Yeah, go straight to there. Yeah. So, anyway, I'm good. I'm back. Nice to be back. It's been a whole whopping, 3 weeks? 2-3 weeks since Endgame.
Yeah, it's been a little bit.
Yeah. So, things are good. Just keeping busy like always, taking kids to swimming lessons, which they actually enjoy now and don't scream and cry about. Isn't everything else. Yeah, it's nice to have one thing they don't scream and cry about.
I just like that they've gotten so comfortable with it that like literally we come home from swim lessons and tonight Jackson says, "Mommy, can we go to swim lessons tomorrow?" And you're like, "No, it's on Wednesday." He's like, "Oh man."
I know. He gets so disappointed. But I love that. He loves stuff like swimming lessons. He loves his speech therapy classes and all that kind of stuff that he has to do. He actually enjoys it, which is great because not every kid loves the things that they have to do.
Hopefully he'll feel the same way about kindergarten next year.
Yeah, let's hope. Because honestly, right now, he's supposed to be making his bed every day. He doesn't love that.
No.
So there are some things he doesn't love to do. But yeah, other than that, been doing work. Last week we had a big event that we put on for, so I work in health insurance. We're a broker agency, and we put on an event for, our carrier people that we work with. So all the support staff in the offices or reps and things like that. And we always do a big movie every year, rent out a theater, bring everyone in to come see it. So of course we did, Avengers Endgame. So I got to see that again last week. Our event was really good and well attended, and it was just lots of fun. So that's...
How many people would you say showed up?
So the theater, I think that we had held like 220 people, and we had about maybe 80 or so seats left that didn't get taken. People had registered or like RSVP'd and then like either couldn't come. There was a really bad accident on the freeway, so a lot of people got delayed or didn't come because of that. So, I mean, it was pretty much the whole main part of the theater other than like the first two main rows down at the front where no one wants to sit anyway.
Just so you know, those extra 80 seats could have made the difference, Britta, because currently Avengers Endgame is sitting at $2.6 billion worldwide. It is getting freaking close to toppling Avatar.
Yeah, well, we paid for the seats. No one sat in them, but we still paid for them. So, we're good.
Never mind.
We contributed.
You guys should do that again and again.
Just rent another theater.
Okay, well, that's cool. How was it? Was this the second or third time you've seen it now?
This was the second time that I saw it.
Okay. How was it the second time around?
It was good. It was still really emotional. So I went with my sister this time, and she'd seen it before too, but after the movie, she was just like, "I thought you'd seen this movie before." And I was like, "Yeah, I have. Why?" And she's like, "Because you kept reacting to everything like it was the first time you'd seen it, and you were crying and everything." And I was like, "Yeah, I'm just an emotional person, and you know me, I react to everything. So when I know something's coming, my hands are up my face, and I'm like, oh no, freaking out." And
Britta, Relax. It's just a Hallmark commercial. It's fine. It's just a Hallmark commercial. You'll be okay. You don't need to get so emotional.
Yeah, I know. They still make me cry. I don't care.
That's why I will not let you get the Hallmark channel add-on thing around Christmas time, because I don't need you just being a puddle.
Yeah, it's gonna happen anyway. I just record all the Hallmark movies on the DVR.
So sad.
They're my favorite.
So
I am
sad.
my father's daughter.
I don't know if that's a positive for you or a real bad slam against him.
He doesn't cry during the movies and stuff, but he loves all the Hallmark movies. My dad just loves cheesy movies, and so do I. And it doesn't bother me at all. You can make fun of me all you want.
And I will. For the rest of our marriage,
I know.
as long as you watch that stuff.
I know.
12 days upon a Christmas advent calendar with my sweetheart. It's like, really? That's a title of a movie? You gotta be kidding me. That's like a paragraph. They get a little out there. And they all have the same people.
Yeah.
Side note, it's like the
Candace
Cameron.
Bure.
Oh, yeah.
She's in
her.
all of them.
Or it's, what's that other actress's name that's in a ton of them?
Oh, the one from Party of Five.
Yes.
Lacey
Chabert.
Sherbet.
Yes.
Chabert.
Lacey Sherbet is in all these movies. And then it's just some random guy. I feel bad for those actors because it's yeah, you look about the right height, you got the right hair color and the right complexion. Yeah, we'll slot you in here.
Whatever. Superman was in one. Brandon Routh.
Superman was not in one. Brandon Routh is not Superman. That's Christopher Reeve.
He was a Superman.
You watch your mouth.
I'm not saying he's
talking to
the
me.
Superman. I'm just saying he was Superman. And he was in one about a firehouse and a cat. So let's...
Oh, that's definitely a step down?
Yeah. Lots of these people do these movies because they make good money. People really love them. They're super popular.
And they don't have to act.
Yeah, and they don't have to try that hard. They're probably easy, cheap, quick to make. And they do well.
Also, it's a sign that their career is pretty much over as far as being a feature lead in anything serious in Hollywood.
Well, maybe, but I'll still watch it.
I mean, when was the last time Lacey Sherbet did anything other than a Hallmark movie? I'm just saying.
I don't know. I don't really follow her career.
See? Because she doesn't have one outside of that 1 month a year.
Mm-hmm.
Just saying.
All right.
Lacey Sherbet, we like you. You're a sweetheart, we're sure. But just, it's, you got to get off the Hallmark Channel. I mean, step it up.
All right.
ABC Family, maybe.
All right.
At least lift it up a little bit. I'm just saying.
So how was your week, Spence?
Oh, well, my week, besides this weird rant about the Hallmark Channel,
I know.
my week was really good. I had ordered the Traeger, and it arrived. Jeremy.
What?
I know. How about that? My buddy Jeremy had ordered it for me, and because he was putting in kind of a big order, and he had this really killer deal that we got 50% off everything. So I went and bought a $1,400 Traeger, which is kind of like the top of the middle line, and I got it for $700. And then I got some accessories and a cover and some pellets and then shipping and whatnot. And I got it all for around $950, which is a steal considering if you would have bought all that brand new, you're probably close to $1,700-$1,800. So.
Well, if it was 50% off, then yeah, $1,800. There you go. Just doing math.
I know, but the shipping would have remained a fixed constant anyway.
That's true.
So anyway, but I appreciate you trying to check me on the math, though.
Yeah, that's what I'm here for.
Embarrass me with the math. Let's get back to talking about Lacey Sherbet again and your obsession with her career.
That's fine. Doesn't embarrass me.
So anyway, the Traeger came and I put that all together and I was able to use it. We didn't have a lot of time. I just smoked up a whole bunch of pulled pork and ribs the weekend before in the pit barrel cooker. And I mean a lot of meat.
Yes.
So I did do about 12 chicken breasts though, on the Traeger. And so when you put it together, you kind of go through all the steps, you put it together, and then you really need to season it, which basically you run it at kind of a low temp for about half an hour, then you kick it up to its highest temp for about half an hour, and then you kind of like bring it back down to either a cooking temperature or you just like let it turn all the way off, just to make sure that it can kind of go through all its cycles and, can hold temp and everything. So I did that, and then I was like, well, I want to use it for something. So I made some chicken, and I tried something. I should have just done plain chicken and then put some barbecue sauce and just had just barbecue chicken. But instead I was like, I want to mess with some flavors, because I've really been, and Britta, you can attest to this, I've really been trying to up my flavor game when it comes to like ribs and pulled pork and, brisket and whatever.
Yeah.
And so I've been trying a lot of different flavor combinations for my ribs. And I thought, well, let me try a few of these different things for the chicken, and we'll see how that works. Well, the problem is this. I made two different kinds of chicken. One was going to be a little spicier. It was a garlic jalapeno base rub, and then I put kind of like a smoky rub on top of it. The other one was kind of an all-purpose rub, so kind of like, salt, pepper, garlic, and onion, kind of a base. And then I did a kind of kind of like an herb, kind of like a garlicky herb, black pepper kind of sauce, rub over top of that. Then I was like, okay, I'm going to let those cook, get a pretty good, not a real bark on them, but just kind of try to infuse some flavor into them. And then I'm going to brush them with the barbecue sauce and kind of like let the barbecue sauce really kind of, caramelize up and kind of get sticky and tacky. Great idea, in theory.
Mm-hmm.
However, I really shouldn't have tried to do both things, because they're really two very different things in chicken, and I haven't done chicken in such a long time. It's been a lot, like I said, it's been a lot of ribs and brisket and pulled pork and steaks and things like that, where you can do a lot of layering of flavors. So the one I made that was the less spicy, in theory, for you and the kids, basically doubled up on the pepper, and then it had kind of a Casey Masterpiece barbecue sauce on it. And I gotta admit, it was a bold flavor. It was just a really strong flavor. It wasn't bad,
right?
But it was way too much flavor for the chicken, and for each bite of chicken, I mean, it was like literally like getting punched in the face with flavor. It was just like, ooh, wow. Yeah. That was the one.
Yeah.
Now the other had the garlic jalapeno and then the smoky rub. That one I was like, okay, well, I want to cut a little bit of the heat with this kind of, I was trying this new barbecue sauce, but it was like Hawaiian barbecue. So it kind of had like a little bit of like a pineapple with it. So kind of like, imagine almost kind of like a teriyaki, but still barbecue. But for some reason, all the flavors of that one combined basically made it taste like I just poured Frank's Red Hot sauce on it. I mean, it wasn't like hot, but it gave it that flavor of Frank's Red Hot, which is fine on chicken wings, but not really on like a whole chicken breast. And there was a lot of it too.
Yeah.
So we ate that meal, and I convinced the kids they had to keep eating, even though they kept saying, "Daddy, Daddy, spicy, spicy." It's like, eat more rice, you'll be fine.
We had to scrape some of it off.
Yeah. Well, then I went and after I cooked it, I actually washed off all the rub that was on the chicken breasts and the barbecue sauce afterwards. I kind of washed it all off and kind of, scrubbed them down a little bit, because it just was way too strong. I mean, I was trying to do too many things. I should have just kept it simple. Either done a light rub and for a seasoning, or I should have just done barbecue sauce.
Well, and I was thinking too that maybe if you'd done like a whole chicken like that, like the whole chicken, it would have like spread it out more, and it wouldn't have been so concentrated on each chicken breast with so much.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So tonight I actually had one of the ones that were kind of considered the spicier one. And it just had like had kind of more of the flavor profile I was looking for, just enough of a flavor where I could get a little bit of heat from it, but not a lot. So I think that in the end, it's all going to be fine as far as like eating them going forward.
Yeah.
But definitely, I just need to go back to basics with chicken breasts and be like, okay, let's not get all crazy. It's either,
keep it a little
a
simple.
marinade, a light rub, or barbecue sauce, but not a combination of like 2 or 3 all together.
Yeah, do your marinades. You always did really good marinades on chicken.
Yeah, I kind of got away from marinades just because I've been doing a lot of other kind of meats that I wouldn't normally marinate.
Yeah.
But chicken is a good chicken's a good marinade type of meat for sure. Yeah. So I'll have to do that. I've got some more chicken out in the garage in the freezer that I can pull out and thaw and do some marinades. Once we, start getting through the
I was like, let's wait another month or two.
Pounds and pounds of meat. Yeah,
we've eaten all of this.
But I am excited though, Super Friends, to try out some more things. I don't know why, but I keep seeing like all the commercials for Traegers are like, we just baked this pie in here and we just did this. And if you're not doing it like on the smoke setting where it's like really, really low and you're getting a lot of smoke there, it's just basically like cooking over a wood fire. And so you'll get a little bit of smoke, but not a ton. So we could do some baking of things in there and whatnot. So some different things to try. Maybe we'll do some more sides or something this upcoming weekend in it. But this upcoming weekend is Memorial Day.
Yep.
So maybe we'll have to do hamburgers. I mean, hamburgers and hot dogs is very kind of a Memorial Day type of meal. So with that going on, I just want to say kind of a shout out. I talked about this last year at my motorcycle club. We've got our big ride coming up this upcoming weekend. So Super Friends, when you hear this on Thursday when the podcast release, or maybe on Friday, it'll be just a day or two before the Templar Knights put on our Fallen Patriot ride. This is where we ride to raise money for the Warriors for Freedom Foundation. Warriors for Freedom helps raise money for veterans, disabled veterans, veterans suffering with PTSD, family members, and basically they try to help them get, healed, whether it's mental, physical, or whatever else, and kind of get them back into the world and operating again. So if you're in the area, which I know a lot of you are not going to be, but if you're in the area, please come down, register for the ride. It's a great ride. We stop at the Veterans Memorial Cemetery. We have a little service there. You'll get to place a flag on a veteran's grave, and you'll also get to hear from Gold Star family members talking about their children or spouses that they've lost that we've honored in the past, and then this year's honoree. But if you can't make it and you're interested, there is a donate button on the website, and you can just donate any sum of money you would like to for the cause. And the website is fallenpatriotride.com. And I highly recommend going and doing that. I know a couple of you did that last year, and we're super appreciative of that. So anyway, I just wanted to put that little plug out there because that's something big that's coming up.
Check it out, Super Friends.
Yeah, other than that, I got a new game that I'm going to be getting back into, the Game of Thrones Living Card Game, the 2nd edition. I played that game for quite a long time on 1st edition.
Yes, you did.
Kind of starting off slow. Me and Nathan Vayon, a guy I work with, we're going to kind of play it some and just kind of have some fun, and then kind of see where it goes from there, because that is a fun strategy card game. Other than that, we talked about this last week, but I've started watching Firefly again, Super Friends.
Yep.
And I don't regret that choice for 1 second.
Should never regret Firefly.
Not at all. Anyway, that's what's going on with me, Super Friends. Britta, what do you say? Is it time to kill some Bothans?
Let's just slaughter them.
I always have to let you know, many Bothans died to bring us this information.
Rest in peace, you Bothans.
All right, Britta, we are into Rebel Intelligence. What do you have for me this week?
So, something, I'm not going to lie, I'm a little bit excited about. For those of you who remember, like, Disney Afternoon, such cartoons as Tailspin, Rescue Rangers, Darkwing Duck, DuckTales, all those things. There is a Chippendale Rescue Rangers movie that is going to be made, apparently.
Really?
Yes. So, right now, the director attached to it is Akiva Schaffer, who is one of the...
From the Lonely Island
from
Boys?
Lonely Island Boys, yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Akiva.
So I'm like, that's interesting, right? I don't know. So...
Is this going to be like an animated film?
It's gonna be kind of like a live action CG hybrid. So my mind, I'm thinking Alvin and the Chipmunks, right?
Right.
Like kind of live action with the CG little chipmunks in there. So that's kind of what I'm envisioning. I don't know, but that's what it says, putting cartoon chipmunks in the real world. Also, so I don't know if you remember the show much, but Chip and Dale were detectives, right? They had a detective agency.
These two gumshoes are picking up the slack.
Yeah.
Anyway. Yep.
Yeah, I love that song. Could sing the whole thing.
There's no case too big, no case too small. When you need help, just call Chip and Dale's Rescue Rangers. Okay, we gotta stop right there. Copyright.
What?
Just
when there's danger. Okay.
we only got like 8 seconds.
Oh my
and then
gosh.
hit with that copyright
oh my
notice.
Gosh. Anyway, so that's the cartoon, but apparently that's not necessarily the direction that the film is going to be taking. So they might not actually be detectives. So I don't know what kind of rescue rangering they're going to be doing, but maybe not in the line of being detectives, which to me, like, that's the whole point of the show. So I'm sure maybe it's like, I don't know, maybe it's an origin story.
Yeah, I was gonna say, so it's gonna be like a Chip and Dale like origin story before they become the Rescue Rangers, when they're just Chip and Dale.
Maybe.
And then maybe by the end they're like, oh, hey, look, and this just happened. There was a murder, and we've got to figure it out.
Yeah. So maybe we'll see. I just hope that it still has a Gadget and Monterey Jack, or whatever his name was, the mouse who loved the cheese.
Right, the one. Yeah.
So he was named after it. I love those guys. So anyway, yeah, find that interesting.
I love Chip and Dale. They're seriously like some of my favorite Disney characters from like the old school, like kind of short, comic type of, films they would do, the little shorts. I love the fact that our boys like them, that we've got them to watch them.
Me too. Yeah.
Because like they're just fun and they're simple, yet they're super entertaining.
Well, and I feel like they still stand up. Like, even just like, we started showing the old cartoons to our kids, like, I don't know, number of years ago. So we had something for them to watch in the car on a car trip. And they love it. I still love watching them. Like, I still find them entertaining, and like, they're just timeless. Love them.
Yep.
So.
All right, Britta. Talking about timeless.
Yes.
Something that I think is absolutely timeless is Back to the Future.
Ah, tricky.
And I know how you like that. So in my opinion, Back to the Future is one of those movies that I never want to see remade.
Right.
It's wonderful. It's great. Like, it captures that feel of the 80s and the 50s that it goes back into. And it's a time travel movie, and I love time travel movies.
Right.
So, apparently, though, Back to the Future is going to get an adaptation, but not the type of adaptation you may be thinking of.
Okay.
It's not going to get a movie adaptation.
Okay.
It's not going to get a TV adaptation.
Okay.
It's going to become a musical.
Okay, I love that.
You heard that right. So apparently, like, it's been rumored about to be a musical since like way back into like 2012.
Yeah.
But according to Playbill, which is like the kind of the big, company that does all the playbills for all the musicals and whatnot, and whatever, they're saying that it's looking like it's going to open February 20th of 2020 at the Manchester Opera House in the United Kingdom. And it's going to remain there through May 17th of the same year. So basically, kind of that's going to be like their previews.
Right.
And then it's going to head to a unnamed theater in the London's West End. And no U.S. engagements have been announced. So it looks like it's going to be tried out in the West End in London before it comes here. I'm sure if it's good and it catches on, it will come to the U.S. and it will hit Broadway. But they're basically saying that they're bringing in all, like, kind of like a lot of the people have been involved. So, like, Bob Zemeckis has been involved, and he was the director of the film. And, they're bringing in The Power of Love, Johnny Be Good. They're also going to feature Alan Silvestri's movie score, along with other songs written just for the production.
Nice.
So, I know that there's been other movies that have been adapted to musicals. Beetlejuice, Mean Girls, Pretty Woman, King Kong, and then, of course, you get the Disney stuff like Beauty and the Beast and The Lion King.
They did Elf.
How does the idea of a Back to the Future musical hit you?
Okay, I love all musicals. Like, I love them all, and I love Back to the Future. And I could totally see this being a Broadway musical, and I love the idea. It'll be cheesy and ridiculous, kind of, but probably also really awesome. I don't know. We're gonna go to London and see it.
We are?
Yeah, we're definitely gonna do that.
I mean, I love Back to the Future, but I mean, I don't know if I'd go to London just for this.
Well, we'll just plan our first European trip, and it'll just happen to be while it's there. So we'll go. Just kind of like, we happened to go to Chicago for your class reunion, so we saw Hamilton.
Yeah, but I was going back there for an actual reason, and then we tacked Hamilton on.
Yeah, I'll find another reason.
Oh.
I really want to see it.
Super Friends, you heard it here first. I'm going broke on a London trip.
Yes. Whatever, we can do it cheap.
All right, what else do you have for me, Britta?
So we haven't heard in a while about this, but the live action Mulan, right?
Yeah, that's still happening?
It's still happening. So recently, we've gotten a little bit of information about the new villain that will be in this film. So,
new villain?
Yes, it's not going to be the same villain, the Shan Yu from the cartoon version. They have a new villain, and I'm sorry if I totally say it wrong, but it's Xian Lang is the name, and it
probably Jean Lang.
Well, maybe it's Xian. The other one was actually Shan. So I don't know. I can't pronounce Chinese, unfortunately. Anyways, so this character, her name actually roughly translates into fairy wolf, and which is kind of corresponding because she's some sort of witch, apparently, who can, turn herself into 1,000 eagles.
Okay.
Interesting. I don't know. But the actress who's playing her, was saying that she's never been in a villain role before, but she said that she thinks audiences will feel that this character is a villain in the beginning, but then toward the end they'll see why. So we're going to get some sort of backstory, it seems like, on this villain towards the end of the movie, where there's going to be some sort of story that's going to develop that. Which is good because the other villain was never really developed.
Well, let me ask you that. Do you think the reason why they switched this to give us a different villain is because Shan Yu really is not seen until the very third act, the last part of the third act of that Disney animated film?
I mean, you see that through, you see him through a couple parts of the movie, but he's just kind of he only talks a few times. A persistent
threat in the background, yes. And he's not,
he's not a main character, because really almost the main villain for Mulan in this movie is herself. She's fighting against being who she wants to be and fighting against,
and the patriarchy in China.
Yes, exactly. So I don't know kind of what role that's going to take on. I mean, they've got a female hero and a female villain. So that'll be interesting because that kind of changes the dynamic of the film, I think, and the story.
So a little while ago, I had Patrick Novosel on the show, and he was all on board for the live action remake of Aladdin, which actually comes out this upcoming weekend.
Yeah.
And I know you're taking the kids.
Yeah.
And he was super excited, super stoked for that. I know you guys are looking forward to that. How does the idea of a live action Mulan strike you though? Are you super excited for this? Knowing some more details, or are you still kind of on the fence?
So I actually have never been that excited about the live action Aladdin. I'm taking the kids because I know they'll enjoy it and they'll love it. And frankly, I love Will Smith and I'll just pretty much watch anything he's in. But I'm way more excited about a live action Mulan because to me, that lends itself to a live action movie more than other things. And and I've always loved Mulan. I've always thought she was a really cool character, you know, like disguises herself as a boy. And, you know, it's a classic story, frankly, you know, to accomplish what she wants to accomplish kind of a thing. And so I don't know. I just feel like, especially because I think they could do so much more with it being live action, like way cooler, like fight scenes and stuff like that. So I think that could actually be really cool. So I'm looking forward to it definitely way more than like the Aladdins and some of the others.
Also, if they're not fighting the Huns, that song, Let's Get Down to Business to Defeat the Huns, it's going to be like, let's get down to business to defeat the fairy wolf witch thingy-mabob. I don't know how that's going to go.
I don't know, because Donny Osmond's probably not singing it either, so we'll just have to see.
Donny Osmond sang that song?
Yeah, he was the voice of, now I forget his name too. Shane, I don't know. This is terrible. I should know their names.
Be very careful in what you say. We're sorry.
I know.
China, if you're listening now.
I know his name. I just forget it right now. I'm really tired, you guys.
China, we don't know your history all that well unless it comes from a movie like Mulan or Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon.
Yeah, that too. So, what are you going to do?
All right. Do you want to move off that one and we can move on to what I have got? Gotcha. All right. So there's a movie series based off a book series that I will never read and never watch because I think it's total garbage. And sorry, Super Friends, I try to stay positive, but this is going to be a little hard for me. But this book series is total garbage. The movies are total garbage, and I want nothing to do with it. And I think Britta will agree with me. This series is Twilight.
Yeah, I understand.
It's garbage, right? It's not that good.
It's not that good. It's weirdly addicting. Weirdly. Like I call it literary crack. Because people who start reading it can't stop reading it and they just have to finish it, but they know it's terrible and horrible and bad for them.
You heard it right there. Twilight is drugs. Stay off drugs, kids. Stay off Twilight. Anyway, so the Twilight cast isn't known for necessarily being maybe some of the best actors or actresses. Unfortunately, one of the actors from the Twilight series, Robert Pattinson, who plays Edward, hashtag Team Edward if you're down with that sort of whatever. Who cares? I know the other one was
Jacob. Team Jacob.
Okay, Jacob, whatever. Edward, Jacob. It's all like
werewolves,
these Victorian
vampires,
sounding names. Yeah. They sparkle though, Britta. They sparkle.
They do. They shimmer.
Okay, that's even worse. We put a lot of glitter on these werewolves and on these vampires. And they're shimmery. I don't know why I got a little Trumpy in there. Listen, we've got all the best vampires. They're super shimmery. They're super bigly. You can see them in the sun. They can walk everywhere. They're excellent. Excellent. Okay, sorry. I just occasionally, yeah. So,
oh my gosh.
I'm tired as well. I'm rabbit trailing, whatever.
What?
Robert Pattinson. Let's go back to Team Edward.
Team Edward.
He is in serious talks right now to play Batman in the upcoming Matt Reeves film, The Batman. Now, Variety broke the story. Apparently, they're saying it's not a done deal, but it's extremely close. The only kind of, I guess, wrinkle, Deadline is saying that Nicholas Hoult, who plays Beast in the most kind of current X-Men films, he's in the mix to potentially be Batman. I don't know that I'd want to see either of these two really play Batman, but I'd much rather have Nicholas Hoult versus Robert Pattinson.
Because here's the thing, is I know that Nicholas Hoult can act. Like, he's been great in those movies, but also remember when he was in About a Boy? He was awesome. That's the same kid. Like, blows your mind a little bit. But yeah, I'd much rather have him. I don't think... Robert Pattinson. I mean, come on. You tried your best, but seriously, just give it up. I am tired of looking at you.
So I want to read something. This is from Matt Reeves, the director, and the guy who's also writing it. He's talking about how that he's still working on the script and that it's getting closer. It's going to be more of a detective story, so they're going to try to go to that, and they also want to make Batman a little younger. But he says it's very much a point-of-view driven noir Batman tale. It's told very squarely on his shoulders, and I hope it's going to be a story that'll be thrilling but also emotional. It's more Batman in his detective mode than we've seen in the films. The comics have a history of that. He's supposed to be the world's greatest detective, and that's not necessarily been a part of what the movies have been. I'd love this to be one where we go on that journey of tracking down the criminals and trying to solve a crime. It's going to allow his character to have an arc so that he can go through a transformation. Wonderful. That sounds great. Yeah. Except that also means to me, in my head, I'm hearing noir Batman, transformative arc, gritty, the detective aspect. To me, that says we're going back to the very, very kind of dark, brooding Batman. And now I'm thinking of like Robert Pattinson as dark and brooding Batman.
So basically it's Edward as Batman.
Edward in a cape and a cowl. Yeah.
Vampire
I'm going to put it out there, Super Friends.
Connection.
That just made me throw up a little in my mouth, Britta.
I'm sorry.
I'm not going to lie. Super Friends, I don't like this. I don't like this one bit. I wasn't really sold on Ben Affleck when I first heard it, but then he played a much older kind of, wizened Batman that I actually really enjoyed, even though the films he was in weren't that great. I did enjoy his portrayal. Christian Bale did a really good job as Batman. Michael Keaton is my Batman. Yep. But the idea of Robert Pattinson just, I hope this doesn't kill Batman.
Yeah, it doesn't sound good to me.
I mean, if Batman can survive a battle with Superman, but yet Robert Pattinson would be the thing to kill him, I mean, just saying, yeah. So, come on, Batsy. Let's keep our fingers crossed. Anyway, that was the last thing I had. Did you have anything else there?
No, I did not.
All right. So, Super Friends, last week we had a conversation, and I had a great time talking about like TV shows that were canceled too soon, shows that we just needed more of, that went too early. And Britta, I want to ask you, what do you think is your show that was canceled too early?
One that comes right off the top of my head that I can think of was Pushing Daisies.
Okay.
This was a great show, and I'm totally just spacing the main actor's name. He's from *Halt and Catch Fire* and was Ronan the Accuser.
Yeah, Guardians of the Galaxy. Yeah.
It's like right there.
Oh, something Lee.
Yes.
Something.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's it.
Keep
Anyways,
talking.
He was the main actor in the show, and the whole premise was if he touched something dead, he would bring it back to life. So like a plant was dead, he would touch it, it would come back to life.
Lee Pace.
There you go. Thank you. Yep. And then if he touched that thing again, it would die again. So what ended up happening through the course of the show was this girl that he loved when they were little kids, she ended up dying. He was investigating or something, so our corpse touched her. She came back to life, and now he can't touch her again or she will die permanently forever. And there's all this kind of stuff, and he makes pies and whatnot and everything. There's a whole bunch of things. And there's some musical bits and things.
I like how you just randomly say, he touches them, they come back to life, and he also makes pies.
Well, it's like
just like it seems so non sequitur.
Well, that's like his business, but it's really funny because like inside of his like refrigerator in his pie shop, it's like all this like rotted fruit. So he just like grabs it and touches it and puts it in his pie, and it like refreshens or whatever. So he can buy like old fruit and stuff. Anyways, it's just part of the thing. I know it's so random. I'm sorry.
So he's cheap that he buys old rotten fruit?
He's magical in some way. I don't know.
I got this barrel of apples all rotten for 10 cents, but I touch it and I get
just
my money back.
It's a really good show.
Okay.
It's really entertaining. It's really like quirky. Kristen Chenoweth is in it. She does a musical number here or there. Like there's not like a ton of musical numbers, but they have them. And it's just a fun show. And it's also kind of like these murder mysteries, sort of. So he wakes up the dead people to find out who killed him and stuff like that. So they're like investigating things as well. There's a lot going on in that show, but it's actually really well done, and I loved it.
And they also bake
and
pies.
they also bake
Yeah,
pies.
got it.
Yeah. But it was a great show. I loved watching it. It was really fun. I think they only did like maybe 2 seasons. Might have only been 1, but it might have been 2. But I wish that show was back on. That was a great show. It was fun.
So that's a show that went too early for you. Well, we've got some answers from the Super Friends.
All right.
Let's go over to our email, and you can always find us fortofnerd@gmail.com. This is Peter Christensen. He says, Dear Nerds, so jealous about the Traeger. In my weaker moments, I oogle those fancy pellet smokers. Well, come on over to the house sometime, Peter, when you're in this neck of the woods, and we'll make something on it for you. He says, I watch TV shows that have ended, so I zoned out during the TV news. I also knew immediately from the topic that the top canceled too early show would be Firefly. Big thumbs up for Jericho as well.
That's a good one.
Back when DVDs started coming out, we were excited about the extra features. But after a while, I realized that the directors were correct to cut most of those deleted scenes, and most of those commentary tracks were rambling and boring. I've sadly come to the same realization about bringing back canceled shows. Despite the highest of hopes, 1 or 2 things usually happens with a resurrected show. First, the concept of the show has been winding down, and the new episodes can't squeeze more out of it. I feel like Jericho ended this way. Or there was some intangible magic with the whole crew that's missing when they're reassembled. Maybe they're different writers, or the actors are in a different phase of their career, or the mood in society is not a good fit anymore. This is Arrested Development seasons 4 through 5. Or if they ever remade the Incredible Hulk TV show, it wouldn't work without CGI, even though Lou Ferrigno is still huge by historical standards. So I've learned that even if I don't appreciate a show's cancellation, I'm generally not in support of efforts to bring this show back. Cheers, Peter Christensen. That's interesting, Peter, you bring up Arrested Development, because I watched season 4 when it originally came out, and I know that they filmed it all kind of out of order because they couldn't get all the actors together at the same time for a lot of it. But I've just today, while I was exercising, started rewatching the kind of a recut version of season 4, so it feels more like the first 3 seasons, and it's pretty good so far. I mean, you're right, it doesn't quite have that magic as before, but it definitely feels better than when it was all filmed and shown out of sequence. That just did not feel like this show at all. So anyway, thank you, Peter. Going over to Twitter, which is at Fort of Nerd. Rich Turpin at TurpinRich says, Nash Bridges. I don't remember the channel it was on, but I contacted them and I was told that Don Johnson was the one who canceled it. I was very sad. I love that show and all the characters. I was in Kansas recently and saw it on TV. Not here, though. Nash Bridges. I don't think that I ever watched that show.
Me either.
Did you ever watch that one, Britta?
No, I've heard of it, but yeah, I never watched that one.
I know I've heard of it, and I know I've seen a little bit about it, but I didn't actually ever watch it. Tim Paulin at TPaulin20 says, first show that came to my mind, My Boys, debuted in 2006 on TBS. Sadly canceled in 2010. Fantastic cast of really funny people, Jim Gaffigan, Jamie Kaler. Chicago sports. Most of the show takes place in their favorite pub. What's not to love? You actually watched that, didn't you, Britta?
I loved that show when it was on. That was a great show, and I kept trying to get you to watch it because I was like, it's about Chicago sports. Like, this is your thing. But yeah, that's really what introduced me to Jim Gaffigan. I didn't really know his just comedy before that. But that was a fun show. I liked that show. That was great.
Burn-Excelsior at Dantes_Belmont says, besides Firefly? ? Because that is the correct answer.
Yes.
Mr. Burnaby. Firefly is the correct answer. It's just forever and always. Always and forever. We are also on Facebook. We didn't get any responses on Facebook, but you can find us at facebook.com/FortofNerd. You also can call in the old voicemail number and leave a message, and that's 801-477-7687. Or you can go and put in an answer on Instagram. And I realized, Britta, I didn't even check Instagram to see if we had any responses there for this week.
Well, check it.
I'm checking it right now. I'm going to see if we got anything on the old Instagram. And the survey says no. Nope.
All right, guys.
No answers. But
Instagram us. Come on.
we are on Instagram, Fort of Nerd. So you can find us there as well. All right, Britta, let me know, how can the Super Friends help us out this week?
So, if you guys want to, it'd be really awesome. We'd super appreciate it. If you went over to like iTunes, gave us a rating, like a whole bunch of stars, and share us with your friends and family. Tell somebody about us. Broadcast it at work. Send out a mass email to everybody. Yeah, you know, hire a skywriter, maybe. Listen to
Skywriters, wow.
You got to get bigger here, people. Think.
Do some smoke
big.
signals, carrier pigeons. Yeah.
Really, carrier pigeons. I say skywriter
Hey,
and
man.
you say carrier pigeons.
Whatever, apparently. We're going all out, Skywriters. Use those black crows.
There you go.
Mhm.
I like that.
Send out the ravens.
Yeah, but seriously, we love to see your reviews on iTunes. Go rate us. Help other people to find us. Help all those super friends who are searching for this podcast. You can do it.
Wow. You're really committed to this bit right now. I like it.
Do what you gotta do, people. Come on.
Yeah, do what you gotta do. Do what you gotta do. Okay, Britta. So I thought we should talk a little tonight for this recording, in this episode, about Game of Thrones, because the Game of Thrones TV series just wrapped up last night.
Yes, it did.
It's been 8 seasons of fantasy television on HBO. And I thought we should maybe kind of talk a little bit about what Game of Thrones is, kind of where it came from, and then maybe a little bit about like why it was good. We'll also talk a little bit about this last season on the show.
Yeah.
So beware, there will be some spoilers if you haven't seen it or haven't heard yet. So when were you first introduced to Game of Thrones?
Gosh, when was I? It was before the series started. I think you had read the books, or maybe Roger had read the books and told us to read them. Somebody, and I started reading the books or listening to them. That was probably
we
time
started
ago.
listening to, I think you and I, because I think I had read the first
right.
book, and then I think I was like, oh, you got to listen to this or read this. We listened to Game of Thrones on a car trip down to Disneyland, and this is pre-kids. This was just you and I. So this would have been maybe around like 2010, maybe?
probably something like that. Yeah,
Maybe late 2009
yeah, it was
even.
probably 2009. I think that's when we went to Disney.
So the TV show Game of Thrones on HBO is actually based off the book series A Song of Ice and Fire by George R.R. Martin. The first book in this series is called Game of Thrones. It's Game of Thrones, Clash of Kings, Storm of Swords, Feast for Crows, and Dance with Dragons. Those are the 5 books that are currently in the series. Yeah. With the announced, Winds of Winter and A Dream of Spring being the final 2 books to come in that series. So the TV show obviously is an adaptation from the book series. Which is interesting to me. So you tell me, I'm going to ask you this question. Why do you think the TV show became so popular? Because at a first glance, this is a fantasy world with dragons and knights and swordplay and, castles and all the kind of the trappings of just kind of epic fantasy type of novels. But it was put onto a television show. We've seen shows like that before, shows that have tried to be like that before. Why do you think this one caught on?
I think, I guess in my opinion, a couple things. One, there's just so many really interesting characters. Especially like Tyrion and Daenerys and Jon Snow. It's just a really captivating story. But two, I also think because George R.R. Martin was not afraid to kill characters and kill main characters. That's a big deal. Kind of like, kind of like The Walking Dead. You'd start to like these characters and then bam, they're dead. They're gone, And I think that was one of the things is that they weren't afraid to be not necessarily realistic, because nothing about this is actually realistic, but realistic in the fact that main people are going to die and like the main character isn't going to live through everything all the time.
Right. Yeah, it's kind of a subversion of like the typical like hero's journey type of story,
Mm-hmm.
right? It's not like, this plucky kid, finds a magic stick in the forest and a wise old man tells him to go do this task. And then if he does that, he's going to gain all this power and learn and da-da-da. It's not like that.
Yeah. I mean, like the very first book, Ned Stark is like one of the main characters. You love him. You think he's so great. He's super honorable, blah, blah, blah. Well, he gets his head chopped off like right away.
Yeah, so George R.R. Martin has famously said that he wants the readers to feel like no one is safe and wants to have that kind of almost fear that, characters you love could realistically die and be gone.
Yeah. And you do.
And so, and that does happen. So you think that's kind of one of the big reasons why the TV series caught on?
I think that's definitely part of it. I mean, I think that, like I said, the other part of it is just that it's this really rich world that he's created. I mean, we've got the maps, kind of akin to Lord of the Rings, right? We know the maps and the lands and the areas, and he describes all the different people so well, and just all these really cool, interesting characters that kind of all end up meshing together in some way. And I think really strong characters and stories really pulls people in.
I agree with that. I also think one of the big reasons why this maybe caught on more than other shows have tried to is that since it was done on HBO, they really tried to film it like a movie and make it have that big cinematic feel to it. So it felt epic versus like kind of like Xena the Warrior Princess, right, or Hercules, that were all these like shows that kind of had similar themes, right? Like dragons and sorcery and swordplay, but they felt like they were filmed for TV. Right. These were felt like they belonged in a movie theater somewhere. And I think that like the production quality was so high. I think that helped, hook a lot of people in. Yeah,
I totally agree, because it does. It looks amazing. They just do such a great job. And I mean, even the intro with the music, like that music is just beautiful. And then the really cool, like gear world thing that they do in the intro is so cool.
Yeah. The kind of the watching like all the little areas kind of like be built up, kind of not like Legos, but kind of like like almost kind of like a pop-up book, right? Yeah, it kind of has that feel to it, like a pop-up book, in a way. So the TV series hits, I think, around like 2011 or so, and that's when it debuts. Obviously, it's been going on, ran for 8 seasons. The interesting thing is, this is one of the first times I can remember where a TV show has started that's been adapted from source material, and not all the source material has been written yet.
Right.
So typically when you get a movie that's going to be adapted, say like The Princess Bride, right? The Princess Bride was an adaptation of a book. The book had been written.
Yeah.
It wasn't like half the book had been written and then they decided, let's go forward. But this was different because there was only 5 books published. I mean, Dance with Dragons was published in 2011 or 2012.
Yeah.
So like right as the first season was either finishing airing or like right as it started airing. And George R.R. Martin has specifically said this is going to be a 7-book series. And we're still waiting on book 6 and then definitely on book 7. Yep. So inevitably you're going to have some issues, right? Because these books are sprawling, huge epics. That in the TV series, we have an interesting thing where we have characters that are alive, that in the books are dead, And we have characters in the show that are dead, but in the books are alive.
Right.
So what's interesting to me about this is that if you've read the books and seen the show, because there's so many characters and there's so many plot lines, do you ever find yourself trying to remember who is who and who's where they're really supposed to be? And, is this person alive? Is this person dead?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Definitely, especially when I'm reading the books, I get really confused and I have to remember, because I listen to the books more than read them, so I don't have that visual cue of their name. It's just hearing it and stuff. So then I would just forget, like, okay, who was that person again? I have to go look it up because there's so many characters, or, what we haven't heard from this person in like an entire book. So who is this again? And what are they doing? And then it gets confusing when you mix the show in there too. Because there was a point where it's like we were following the books, and then all of a sudden, bam, no more books. And so now I'm like, okay, is this actually going to happen? Did this happen? Because some of it overlapped a little bit, where half the story was still in the books and the other half was already out of the books.
Right. So famously, at the end of the 5th book, Dance with Dragons, one of the main characters, Jon Snow, who, if you watch the TV series, is a beloved character. George R. R. Martin, let me back up a little bit. George R. R. Martin writes his chapters from point of view characters. And there's 3 characters that have the most point of view chapters above all of the other characters. Mm-hmm. That's Daenerys Targaryen, Tyrion Lannister, and Jon Snow. So at the end of Dance with Dragons, Jon Snow gets murdered by his brothers of the Night's Watch, and he's dead. That's where the last book ended up.
Yeah.
Finishing. And of course, like the readers, the people that are, that have read the books and, kind of know where that story is, we've had theories for years and years and years that this is going to happen and that's going to happen. And, John's maybe not really dead, or maybe he comes back from being dead or whatever. Mm-hmm. But in the TV show, it ends that way in the 5th season. But then we start the 6th season and Jon gets brought back.
Right.
And then we're pretty much off to the races, because at this point, the TV show is going places that the books haven't gone yet. Now, I know that Benioff and Wise, the 2 showrunners, and who also have written a lot of the show, mm-hmm. talked to Martin prior to the show. And so they kind of had an idea of where Martin is going to try to end the series, or some of at least the big highlights, big storylines. So it gives me hope as a book reader that when book 6 comes out, Jon Snow will come back to life.
Right.
But you never know with George R. R. Martin. That could have just been the end of Jon Snow and we could be moving on.
Right.
So it's kind of one of those iffy things, right?
Yeah.
So the last was season 7, season 8. Season 6 was a full season of 10 episodes on the TV show. 7 was only like 8 episodes, mm-hmm. and then season 8 was only 6 episodes, which progressively, got shorter and shorter. A lot of fans have complained about that, but the realistic thing is that production costs have just continued to get higher and higher, and is trying to wrap up the series, so there's these big events that have to happen, and those cost lots and lots and lots of money.
Right.
Plus, let's also be honest, this is one of the highest watched shows right now, so the contracts probably for a lot of the main actors have probably been renegotiated a time or two, and they've probably been able to get some raises.
Right.
I'm just assuming, because that tends to happen with TV.
Sure.
So we get into the 8th season, this last season that aired. And the whole season looks like it's going to come down to basically a contest between just a few characters. And it's really those 3 point of view characters, Tyrion, Daenerys, and Jon. They're going to be the big driving force in the series. Let me ask you this.
Yeah.
What did you think of the 8th season, this final season that just aired?
There was some stuff that I really loved. I mean, they did a really good job with, like the war against the White Walkers and some of that kind of stuff. But I felt like some things were really rushed and just like, oh, we got to resolve this real quick. Let's end this real fast. So, there's like because it felt like in season, I can't remember if it was season 7 or 6, where it felt like kind of like nothing really was happening. And then in this season, it felt like they had to have something big and huge in every single episode. And I don't know, it felt a little rushed to me. Like, the change in Danny felt really rushed. You know, the actual big ending felt very strange. But there's definitely stuff I loved about it.
So I'm not going to disagree with you. I think most of the fans that have watched the show probably will not disagree with you that it did feel rushed. I mean, 6 episodes was a real short season, and a few things narratively, like Dany's kind of turn. Even though, like, if you look back at it, so the main character of Daenerys Targaryen, you know, starts off as this, you know, girl who she's from the exiled royal house, the rightful rulers of Westeros, this, you know, fantasy land in which this whole kind of world and, you know, book series and the TV show takes place. And she crosses the narrow sea and goes over to this other, you know, land called Essos. And they're basically living in exile. So they're an exiled ruler, and she's been, you know, taught her whole life that, you know, her birthright is, you know, to rule, or her brother to rule, and her brother ends up dying, and she ends up, you know, basically walking into a burning funeral pyre with 3 stone eggs, and walks out unburnt and has 3 baby dragons. So for her, from that point on, she already has grown up believing she's the rightful ruler of Westeros. Now she feels like she can do almost anything because she believes in destiny.
Right.
And her destiny is going to be to go back to Westeros with her baby dragons that'll eventually grow and take back over, because that is she's the rightful heir. That's her rightful place. And along the way, she ends up going in, you know, getting together the Dothraki, these, you know, kind of savages, you know, these horse lords that ride around in this big desert and kind of, you know, do whatever they want. They're a nomadic kind of warrior tribe, and she kind of calls them to her cause. Then she frees a whole bunch of slaves in Marine, but she has to kill a whole bunch of, you know, people, slavers, in order to do that. You know, she ends up getting this army for her. But like every step along the way, it's just like everything continues to fall into place. And so she really believes in destiny. But along the way, she's also doing a lot of killing.
Yeah, she started off trying not to. She tried to be a leader that, you know, like, I just remember, like, with the Dothraki and stuff, she was kind of appalled by how they just, like, kill people and, like, rape and pillage and stuff like that. And same with Slavers Bay, and then she was, you know, appalled by the slavers and stuff, but then she let the slaves kill the slavers and everything, and that's kind of where it started to shift, and you could see this change in her, that she's like, okay, well, we're not going to get through this without some bloodshed. And the more power she acquires, the more this happens.
She takes over the city of Astapor to liberate it, but then she basically kind of like sets up camp there, and she starts to basically like be the ruler, and like it's just kind of all these things. And eventually she comes over to Westeros. By the time we get to this like final season with her, like it's literally been like she has destiny, but in the final season, every single episode, she loses something. She either loses advisors that she trusts that get killed. She loses people that she loves. People that she trusts or loves betray her.
Right.
She loses 2 of her dragons out of the 3. She also finds out that the person she's in love with actually has a better claim to the Iron Throne, to the kingdom, than she does. And so basically this whole last season was like, let's chip away at her belief in destiny that she is the rightful ruler, and let's keep stripping away all these things that would feed into that, you know, I'm the rightful heir, to the point where she's going to lose it because she feels like she's lost everything.
Right.
And she, because of her bloodline and her whole family, there's some madness there. She gives into that, and she starts doing some horribly wicked things and becomes a tyrant. And that whole turn seemingly took place this last season, even though, like, I think the seeds of it had been there. But if this season had been longer, and if last season been longer, I think they could have started establishing that turn in her character arc earlier, which would have made it feel maybe a little more realistic.
Right.
Versus like, how do we take this person that everyone seems to be pretty much okay with, even though she's done some bad things, and in the space of 6 episodes, turn her to full-on villain?
Yeah, because, I mean, basically at the end of last season, everyone was like, yeah, go Dany! Like, we're gonna see her sit the Iron Throne. Like, everyone's cheering her on. We love her. She's awesome. She's just, like, super cool, like, bad A chick. And then all of a sudden this season, we're just like, oh, all right, so she crazy. Right?
Yeah.
So
real quick.
That's what it felt like.
What I like about the character of Jon Snow is that it feels like to me his character was the most thought out because his idea of duty, his idea of loyalty, and, you know, his moral compass had been set in the very, 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 very beginning of the book series and also the very beginning of the show. And when he gets to the finale of season 8, he realizes that he has to do his duty above love, and that duty is the death of love. And it's kind of these themes that like really kind of tied back into the first episode. And I thought his character arc, while he progressed and he had all these things happen to him, at the end of the day, who he was at the beginning, at his core of who he is, still was who he was at his core at the very, very end.
Right. It's interesting because he did change over the series. He definitely had more like confidence in himself and like leadership ability and stuff, but he really didn't actually change either.
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
It's more like he just grew and matured, but he didn't have a big change. And I kind of felt the same thing with Tyrion too. I mean, Tyrion starts off and he's just this, you know, he's the dwarf, the imp, right, of the Lannister family. And he drinks a lot. He parties a lot. He doesn't take things seriously. And for the most part, he still is kind of that way. But eventually, though, he does get to this point where he realizes, because he becomes made hand of the king to his nephew Joffrey Baratheon, then he becomes hand to the queen Daenerys Targaryen. He realizes that he has the ability to make choices and influence things for the betterment of the people.
Right.
Not so much the ruling class, the lords and ladies of Westeros, but for the people. And in the end, you can see in that last season, like, he's trying to do everything he possibly can to save the lives of basically all the peasants and all the commoners.
Right. Yeah.
Even though that doesn't happen.
Yeah, not so much, but he really does try. Yeah, I mean, I feel like his character makes a big change from where he started out to where he ended up. And, you know, he used to just feel so sorry for himself all the time and like, oh, woe is me. My family hates me. My dad hates me. My sister hates me. Everybody hates me. No one cares, blah, 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 to the end where he's like, oh, I have the power to impact who the next leader of our, you know, world is going to be. And, you know, I have some insight and value in this, and it doesn't matter what they thought of me because these people listen to me and trust me.
Yeah. No, absolutely. A really good point. One of the things I think I also like about the show and this book series, because really the TV show up until like season 5 really does heavily pull from the book series, is that I feel like the TV show really captures George R.R. Martin's tone. You know, a lot of the, you know, the plots obviously, but the themes, the character development really well. You know, we have a character like Arya Stark. So at the very beginning of the book series and the TV series, we have what basically kind of kicks off this whole thing is that the king has lost his right-hand man, you know, what they call the hand of the king. This is like, you know, the vice president to the president, if you will, right?
Number one advisor.
Yeah. Jon Arryn dies. You find out later he's poisoned, but Jon Arryn dies. And so King Robert Baratheon travels all the way from King's Landing, which is in the south of the nation, all the way up north into Winterfell, where Eddard Stark is Warden of the North. You know, he's the big lord up in that area, and it's his responsibility to kind of take care of the entire North. And he comes up to the North to the Stark household of Winterfell and asks Eddard to come travel south with him and be his hand. And so we get introduced to the Stark family, and we get introduced to Robb Stark, you know, his eldest son, Jon Snow, his bastard son, Sansa, his eldest daughter, Arya, his youngest daughter, Bran, and then little tiny Rickon, and also his wife Catelyn. But we get introduced to these Stark characters, and then this is really kind of where everything kicks off. You know, they go south. Eddard ends up dying at the end of the first season in the first book, and their family kind of gets split to the wind, and their house kind of gets, you know, kind of overrun and pretty much, you know, exiled for quite a long time. But we still follow a lot of the Starks along with, you know, the Baratheons, some of the Baratheons, and then the Lannisters that were really married into the Baratheon family. But I like that we follow certain characters still of the Starks. And when we get to the very end of the TV show, and I'm going to preface this by saying the TV show because we don't know what's going to happen in the books,
Right.
You really kind of get a feeling at the very last episode that even though the Stark family was decimated in the first season and everything was scattered to the wind, the remaining Starks, you know, those that survived, it really became their story in the end. It was the story of, you know, the survival of Winterfell in the North and, you know, making the North a free kingdom with Sansa. It was the story of Arya and her kind of adventures and travels. And now that, you know, everyone that was on her little kill list is pretty much dead, she's going to go off and she's going to adventure. And then Jon Snow, you know, who went to the Wall and became a member of the Night's Watch because he had nowhere else to go. And then it goes through these huge travels at the very end. He gets sent back to the Wall again and kind of comes full circle. And then Bran, who is the little boy that becomes crippled at the very first chapter of the first book and the very first episode of the TV show, you know, ends up being the one that's going to be the ruler and is going to be a just kind of a benevolent ruler. But like you see that it kind of pivots back to the Stark family, which I hope we kind of see in the books.
Right.
Because that first book, you really feel like the Stark family is going to be like the main protagonist. You think Eddard Stark is going to be the main protagonist of the series, and then he gets killed. And the family kind of gets splintered and split up, and, you know, some of them go to war, some of them disappear, some of them go off this way, that way. And then we bring in all these, you know, plethora of other characters, and everyone's kind of scattered to the wind. But to see their story kind of resolve with the TV show, I kind of hope the books do that. I don't need it to end the same way.
Right.
But I do want to see some sort of resolution to that family.
Right. Yeah, they're so central to this story, and they're some of the most beloved characters in the books and in the show that for sure everyone wants to see something good come out of it, especially after some of the horrible tragedies that their family faces. And they just have such interesting stories, each one of them growing and changing so much. I mean, Sansa from this naive little, I think she's like 13 or 14 when the book starts, and she's just in love with Joffrey and wants to marry him and be the queen. And she goes through so many awful things to become this really fierce, you know, northern woman who, you know, gets to rule over
and becomes a queen.
Yeah, becomes the queen. I mean, of Winterfell, queen in the North. So she just has this really great story. I know a lot of people who just love her and just wanted to see her sit the Iron Throne, frankly. And Arya, who has this transformation from this little girl who just wants to be like her big brother. She wants to be a knight, but she tries so hard, and she goes through a huge transformation to become this amazing fighter and basically assassin, which is a little scary,
right.
But she's a super cool character too. And just these transformations that each of them have, it's so compelling and just really draws you in and makes you want to follow them.
Yeah. It's interesting because there's so many good characters in this series, in the books, or in the TV show. Do you have like a favorite or a couple favorite characters that you really either like or identify with?
I mean, I feel like some of my favorites are probably other people's favorites. always loved Arya. I loved Arya in the books. I loved how she just wasn't going to let anyone get to her, and she was going to fight no matter what. I mean, from the beginning with Cyril Farrell, her dancing instructor, and when they came to, to attack them, and, he says, "What do we say to death?" And she says, "Not today." And like, that is her theme through the whole series. And I love that, watching her story. I don't know, I'm trying to think some of the other characters Varys was a really interesting character that we definitely got to see more of. And I feel like we followed him a little more and got his backstory and everything in the show. And I can't remember how much of that is in the book. Definitely not towards the end and stuff. So he was a really interesting character, to follow, and what you kind of learn from him at the end of the show is that he's like, you think he's kind of in it for himself in the earlier seasons of the series and stuff. And then you learn from at the end that he's like, no, I'm always trying to do what is best for the people and what is best for, his little, spiders. Is that what he calls them? Or he's the spider? His little birds.
He's the spider. Yeah, his little birds, his spies.
His little spies and stuff, that he's really trying to actually help the little people. And I loved that.
So for me, I really always loved Jon Snow's character. He very much is like his father, Eddard. But then he does things when he goes north of the wall. He ends up falling in love, even though he says he's not going, he takes an oath that he's not going to be with a woman and, whatever. But then he falls in love with this wildling woman when he's north of the wall. And, he just madly falls in love with her, and it kills him when she dies. Mm-hmm. And it really does change him. So I really liked Jon Snow, but this is maybe a little more unpopular, and it definitely comes more from the books than from the TV show, but Jaime Lannister. So Martin writes Jaime Lannister so that you start off in the very beginning hating the character. Yeah. I mean, he cripples Bran. Mm-hmm. He's having an incestuous relationship with his twin sister. And he's also one of the best fighters, knights in the entire Seven Kingdoms. And his name is Kingslayer because he was part of the King's Guard, and he betrayed the Mad King Aerys, and he killed him. And then you find out as the books kind of progress, and the TV show as well, but as the books progress, you find out that, he really killed the Mad King Aerys, Aerys II, because Aerys II was going to kill millions and millions of people in King's Landing with this wildfire, and was going to burn them all because he was mentally out of his mind. Mm-hmm. And so Jaime killed him in order to save millions of people.
Right.
Yeah. He also makes this turn where you see that he's this fierce warrior and he fights, but eventually he realizes that he has the ability to start suing for peace and bringing people together. And he gets this big kind of character change. And it's down the road when he saves Brienne of Tarth and all these kind of things that kind of happen. He loses his hand. He really makes a big character change. So where I'm at now in the books, I really like Jaime Lannister.
Right.
I really like him, which at the beginning it's this guy's one of the worst people possible. Yeah. He's just no. But then the way he's written, it's okay, this guy's kind of pretty awesome. And I like that because Martin takes, what your perception is and subverts that and can change the character. And I love that kind of writing. I always enjoy that. But Jaime Lannister is one of those characters that I really enjoy. In the TV series, I still also like him, but they didn't really make that turn strong enough for me. There was things that I think were really missing that were in the book. But I also get it that, how do you adapt these huge, large books into a TV series without making 20, 30 seasons?
Right.
It's not entirely possible.
No, it's not. There's too much.
So looking back, Britta, if you'd ever looked at this, do you think, is this something looking at Game of Thrones? Do you ever think to yourself, this is something I don't believe I ever got into and I ever watched? Or is this something you think that you would have always been on board with no matter what?
I feel like it's definitely something I would have always been into because I really love this sort of genre. I can't remember how if it was just, I think it was just you that introduced me to it. So I'm really glad because I really enjoy it. And I would hope I would have found it on my own at some point, but, yeah.
So for me, this obviously was going to be something I was going to be into from the get-go. But something though that like, it took me a little while to kind of mentally prepare myself for, knowing the TV show was coming up, is that the books are written in kind of it's a fantasy world, but it's also kind of set like in kind of like a medieval type of setting. I mean, we don't have modern luxuries. There's no cars. There's no electricity. I mean, you want light, you got to use a torch or daylight. There's no like running water. It's like outhouses and all that kind of stuff. And also because of that, the violence in the books and in the show is very, very rough because, I mean, it's broadswords and, bows and, stuff like that. Also, there's quite a lot of sex in the books and in the show. In the books, it's kind of easy because if, you don't really want to read that because it does get a little gritty and a little detailed at parts. You can just kind of skim over a couple, sentences and kind of move past that.
Right.
In the TV show, it was a lot harder it was like, okay, let's fast forward or, let's mute this and kind of look away, during this scene, whatever, because it was pretty graphic. Thankfully, though, in the later seasons, they really kind of got away from that. I felt like they were going really heavy on the nudity and the sex stuff in the earlier seasons of the show, and they really got away with that. That, for me, was always one of those things where it kept me from recommending the show to a lot of people. Yeah. Like, I felt like I really kind of had to know the person and kind of feel them out before I could say, I definitely recommend this. There's some things that, you're going to want to watch only as an adult. You're not going to have kids around because this is not kid-friendly.
At all.
But it's a great story and it's got a lot of, really interesting themes and ideas. But it was kind of like I had to know my audience.
Right.
I don't know if you ever ran into that when you were recommending it to people or talking to people about it.
Yeah, absolutely. It wasn't something that I just started off with necessarily. And I think if I hadn't read the books first, I might not have gotten into the show. Knowing that, because, there's some HBO shows that I know are a little gratuitous and it's not necessarily something I'm going to pick up on my own. But because I had read the books and I loved the story already, I knew what to expect. And so, I could kind of look away and whatnot when I didn't want to see some of that stuff. So, but yeah, definitely this more adult kind of stuff makes me a little more careful about who I would never recommend it to my mom.
Right. It's one of those things where it's like, if you like, high fantasy, epic fantasy, Lord of the Rings is a great, safe recommendation. It's a wonderful story and there's violence in it, but it's not to this level. Like, this is really like very, very medieval. I mean, gruesome. There's incest and there's rape and there's beheadings and gruesome deaths and, just, it feels very realistic to what that time period would have been, but it's definitely not an accurate portrayal of where we are as a society now.
Right.
By any stretch of the imagination. But we had 8 seasons of it. As it wrapped up, I look at this like this with Britta. I really enjoyed the whole series as a whole. This last season didn't ruin the series for me, but it definitely didn't hit a lot of the notes that I felt like it needed to hit to really end strong. I felt like it ended okay, but it didn't end strong for me. I mean, how do you feel about that? Like, overall in the last season? Yeah,
I kind of agree. It definitely hit some awesome things. There was some really good stuff. I feel like this is the thing that I think is that because George R. R. Martin had talked to the writers and they kind of knew where he was going with the story and, some particular things that would happen in the end. So I felt like maybe they took some of those and were like, oh, we really have to get this. Like, to me, the Bran thing. Like, Bran seemed like the least likely one to be picked to rule the 7 or rather 6 kingdoms. And so I'm like, well, maybe that really is something that's going to happen in the books. But like, there was a whole season in the series where Bran was not even in it. You didn't see him once. So I feel like it was like later they were like, oh, well, I guess he says that Bran's going to rule at the end, so we better throw him back in here, give him a little bit of story, and then just poof, magic at the end. Like, it feels like a few things made really sharp right turns just to have the correct ending.
Yeah.
And that's one of them for me.
Yeah. Like I said, as a whole series, I really, really, really love it.
Yeah.
But the last season for me didn't ruin it, but it definitely, it could have been stronger.
Right.
It could have been done a little bit better. I'm not one of those people, though, that are like, there's a lot of people out right now that are going like change.org and they're trying to like sign a petition to redo the last season. It's like, that's never going to happen. I'm like, first of all, no one takes that change.org stuff seriously. But second of all, come on. You're really going to go to like a government website to try to get a private company to remake the end season of a TV show?
Just wait for the books to come out, people.
Yeah. So that's
satisfying.
the thing. I want to say this to the Super Friends. Super Friends, if you've only watched the TV show and you haven't read the books, definitely go back and read the books. I mean, you got to know that this is the true source material it all came from. So there will be differences. Like I said, people will be alive, people will be dead, vice versa on the show weren't. There's lots of other storylines. There's lots of things that kind of were hinted at in the show that actually are a lot more fleshed out in the books, prophecies and, predictions and all these other things. There's lots of theories, but it's only going to go up to a certain point. And then we're going to have to wait for George R. R. Martin to come out with the last 2 books in order to finish the whole thing. Yeah. But it's definitely worth doing.
Yeah, absolutely. I highly recommend that.
I actually think I'm going to go back and reread them.
Me too.
Because it's been a long time since I've read them.
Yeah.
Probably like 7 years maybe. So.
Yeah.
So here's my question for you, Britta, and for the Super Friends.
Okay.
So if you watched Game of Thrones and you were into this, that's over. What's next? What's the next big kind of sci-fi / fantasy thing that's on the horizon you're looking forward to?
That's a good question. Probably just the next season of Star Trek Discovery. We still haven't watched season 2 yet, which I'm really excited for. I loved season 1, and I'm hoping they're going to make more of those. So that's probably what I'm looking forward to. I'm sure there's something else that I'm totally forgetting about, but that's what I'm thinking of right now.
So for me, I want to see the adaptation of the King Killer Chronicles.
Oh, yeah.
There's the TV series and the movie that's being worked on. That I really, really want to see. That's a 3-book series that only the first 2 books are out, and I know the 3rd book is being worked on. It is, for me, it's kind of right up there with the George R. R. Martin stuff. It's up there with the Tolkien stuff as far as like some of my favorite things. So that's something I really want to see. I want to see the adaptation of Name of the Wind and Wise Man's Fear and then Doors of Stone when that happens. The other thing is, I know that Brandon Sanderson has, is kind of, developing the rights for his Stormlight Archive series.
Yeah.
And that could be a big series. Once again, though, Brandon Sanderson's only written 3 of the alleged 10 books. They're going to be a series of 5, and then he's going to do a break, and then another series of 5 books. But Brandon Sanderson does pump out a new book about every 2 or 3 years in that series, along with a bunch of other series he's writing on. Right. So I don't see that being anytime like really soon, but I wouldn't be surprised if maybe 5 to 7 years from now we see something in the Stormlight Archive series hitting television.
That would be super cool because that is definitely one of my favorite series so far that I've ever read. And there's only 3 books, but they're so good.
Yeah, I'm in the middle of re-listening to the second one right now.
Nice.
So, anyway, Super Friends, that's what I want to know from you. This is our question of the week. What is the next big thing you are looking forward to? And this could be TV, could be movies, whatever. I don't care. But Game of Thrones is now over. What comes next? What's the next big thing you're looking forward to? You can let us know at all of our normal places, our email, our Facebook, our Twitter, our voicemail, our Instagram. Smoke signals, carrier pigeons, whatever. Let us know and we will read those answers next week. From all of us here at the Fortress of Nerditude to all of you out there, wherever you may be, may the Force be with you, always.